We're live. VUCA Fit podcast brought to you by VUCAFit.com. Jose?
We're live.
I love the intros to the show because what we get to do at the beginning of the show is, first of all, let you know what you're going to learn about. And today we're going to learn about the importance of culture and vision and some of these quote unquote soft or intangible things in a business that ultimately make it so that it's just more than a group of people doing stuff. So we're going to talk about the importance of that. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to ourselves because we sponsor the show. We have a business called VUCA Fit. You can go check out the resource center right now. And when you go to VUCAFit.com, you're going to find a bunch of free stuff that we would love for you to take and make your life better. So without further ado, let's get into this work. Let's do this, man. Hey, Jose.
Let's go.
Here you got two teenagers now. That's pretty weird. We're just talking.
My son's going to turn 13. My son's turning 13. I got a 17-year-old. Her boyfriend is actually in the house right now. He's been in the house for the entire summer. I don't know what to think about that.
What do you mean in the house? Like he's in your home right now?
He's in my home. He was just sleeping on the couch. Like just 10
What do you mean
minutes ago.
What do you mean he's sleeping on the couch?
My daughter was
Does he
like,
live with you?
don't make
Does
noise.
he live with
I'm
you?
like, what do you mean don't make noise? What do you mean don't make... What, you're afraid I'm going to wake him up? Yeah.
I'm confused. Why is the boyfriend staying at your house? Is he homeless?
No, just sometimes. No, they just bring him up. They drop him off. Just
drop him off.
Just drop him off. He spends the whole day here. He eats all my food.
So when your daughter was here in the States going to school this summer at Notre Dame, did he just come and hang out and like still get free meals and stuff, or what's that look like?
No, that's what I'm resentful about, that he never showed up while she wasn't here. So it's all about her. It's not about me.
He didn't show up?
He didn't show up.
Oh my gosh. Are you feeling
left? Before he left, he was bringing avocados every time he came home. He came over with 2 avocados from his yard, and I was like, I expect avocados in the next 15 days when Victoria's not here, but he didn't show up with any avocados. None.
Well, if I only knew that avocados were the way to your heart, you know, this would have been a much more simple relationship a long time ago. Avocados and manzanas.
There you go. But yeah,
let's talk about vision, dude. Let's talk about vision. Like, you know, if you think about strategy, business strategy overall, there's a couple ways that you can think about business strategy. This is almost going to be kind of like a little bit of a parallel to Dan Sullivan's book, The Gap or the Gain, right? Mm-hmm. And the synopsis of The Gap or the Game, if people haven't read that book, it's pretty easy. We've talked about it on this show, but I'll give you a 30-second version, which is that when we're looking at our performance and, you know, at any point in time, we're always thinking about, if you're a business owner, like where you can go with it, right? And sometimes you'll look ahead and you'll see people ahead of you, your peers. And that could be going on social media. It could be driving down the street. It could be a variety of different ways, but we're reminded. And then sometimes that can make you feel empty, defeated, not good. It can make you feel like you're not doing enough. And that's when you would be called living in the gap. Living in the gain is looking out the rear view and being like, hey, look how far I've come.
Yeah.
Not comparing yourself to other people, but comparing yourself to where you've been historically. And vision in a company is what helps us, I think, look out the front window, be aware of the people that are, you know, that are doing other stuff, but to have our own aspirations to run our own race, which is something I used to always say as a runner, run your own race. What's your vision? Yeah. My vision for every marathon I ran was, if I had to drag myself across the finish line bloody and dead and I was in last place, I was going to finish. Like, that was my vision. Not to be pulled off the course or have a DNF. That was my race. I ran my race, my vision. Yeah. And so I want to talk about vision because it is one of those powerful things where I think a lot of business owners, I'll just say, waste a lot of energy measuring themselves against others in their industry. Mm-hmm. Maybe looking back and thinking about all the things that could have been or would have been or should have been, regret, whatever.
Yeah.
Where if you have a vision of where you're going, that really is like the big unlock for getting people organized behind your thoughts, your leadership, if you're the leader of the organization. And frankly, it helps drive value into your company. So that's what I want to talk about today, vision and culture.
Okay.
And you're an expert in this shit. You're an expert in this.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I've fumbled around with it with a few companies, and we have a roadmap. We have a roadmap for it that we applied. I actually trained and got certified with a place called Barrett's Value Center. And Barrett's Value Center is all about developing cultural capital. And so, yeah, I did some consulting with many companies before I started just doing, putting people in ice baths and doing the VUCA Fit method. We did a lot of what this vision to me falls under strategic alignment and strategically aligning the company. And vision is part of that. And
yes,
it's funny you say, about the comparison games today. I wrote on Facebook a post about defining your own success. Like, don't let other people define success for you. And I think that
seriously,
yeah,
that's amazing.
And it's about not getting caught up in what other people are doing and having clarity of what success looked like for you. This is vision to me. What I was taught theoretically and what I've always held on to is that vision is where we see ourselves and our business in a time frame. It can be 3 to 5 years,
right?
And having clarity of where we see ourselves in 3 to 5 years. And again, it's part of one of the elements of strategic alignment and developing cultural capital. And so, yeah, where do we jump in? Do you want to just talk about vision, or you want to talk about developing cultural capital?
I want to go back to this. I want to go back to this cultural capital thing, because you mentioned the word capital. And last week, as you know, I spent probably about 50 hours in a class and with a group of people getting my certified exit planning advisor designation certification. I took a test on Sunday. I find out if I passed on Friday, so hopefully I passed. But regardless, one of the biggest things that I learned from becoming a certified exit planning advisor is that 80% of the value in businesses is actually trapped into 4 C's, and they're all intangible. And one of them's what you just said. It's just got a different label, which is we've got human capital, which is the people and the knowledge, that tends to walk out the door every night from your business. You've got your customer capital, the relationships that you establish with your customers. I'm not just talking about the dollars and cents. I'm talking about the types of relationships, the variation, the quality of those. You've got structural capital, so like how the business performs. And then you have social capital, right? And social capital is like how people think about you, whether that is internal employees or whether that is, the market. And so those 4 C's, the capital, the intangible capitals, are literally what drive about 80% of the value in companies. Yeah. And so talking about this.
So repeat the 4 C's. Repeat the 4 C's.
So we got, and this is just through the value acceleration as a trademark methodology that they've named them, but it's human, customer, structural, and social, right?
And social being culture.
Exactly. Social culture is going to fall under that. It's going to fall under how your customers perceive you, as well as how your employees, interact and whatnot within the company. So I want to dive into that, because guys, if you're thinking about this and you're listening and you're like vision and all these things, and I came from corporate America where I thought all of this was just garbage,
crap,
to a certain degree. Yeah, absolutely.
It can be super crap.
Absolutely, it can be. Yeah. If it's just words on a wall that nobody actually adheres to, and I've worked in organizations where that's actually true. The words on the wall are not how the people in this building are conducting themselves. Yeah. So yeah. So the importance of developing cultural capital. What you're saying is that in your accelerator, in your course, they're really emphasizing on, and this is an exit plan. This is a plan to sell your company, right? If you want to sell your company. So not just to sell your company, to build the value in it so that you can be replaced, so it could be transferred. Okay, because 100% business owners are going to exit their business at some point. It's just the reality. We're going to die or sell or something, right? So it's more being prepared. It's more just a good business strategy, smart business.
And building the cultural capital, building the culture is a critical piece of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very
absolutely
important. So I think it was Peter Drucker who said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast."
Yeah.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it doesn't matter what your strategy is. If your culture doesn't align, your culture is going to set the strategy no matter what by default. You're not going to override it unless you do it intentionally. So when I come upon somebody that wants to develop cultural capital, the building blocks of developing culture is the values. You build cultures based on values. Those are the building blocks of culture. But when you commit to building culture, like there's a roadmap that we would follow. So first we want to really make sure people understand why it's important. Culture, you can navigate crisis better. You can get better employees. You can create a better performance. I mean, culture has impact on so many levels when it's done right.
Oh yeah.
So
it's good business.
It's good business. And so
it's profitable.
Yeah, I mean, one company that we worked with here in Nicaragua that we did a very good job, and I'll tell you why. What were the key factors that made it a very good? That I say we did this well, and it's the first principle that you have to fulfill on create culture. And the first principle is leadership commitment. So cultural transformation begins with leadership transformation, and it begins with the head honcho. I mean, it begins with the top person. If the top person isn't, I would go to use the word obsessed with creating culture. It's going to be really hard to make it happen because the leadership is always going to be undermining whatever work you're doing. So if you have a leader that says, "I want you to, instill values in my company," I delegate it to you. Let me know how it goes. Every time he or she shows up, they're going to be undoing everything that you did because they're the ones that are going to be setting the real values of the company. It's going to come through their behaviors, what's important to them, how they show up. It doesn't matter what you do; they're always going to come in. It's actually going to be detrimental if you start this type of process. Yeah, and then you're undermining this type of process.
That sounds like a disaster.
Yeah. So I actually got trained with Barrett's Value Center because I had a client who wanted to develop a culture of happiness in his company.
That's an interesting way.
Yeah. He's like, I want people to understand that happiness is important. I want the most important thing to be happiness in the company, but my managers aren't buying into it. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was like, hey, let me figure this out. And so I started investigating, how to develop culture. And I stumbled upon Barrett's Value Center. I was like, oh, here's a course. And so I actually told my client, look, I'm going to get trained in this, and then we'll apply it in the company. I'd already done some stuff, but these guys had a course laid out, like a roadmap laid out.
Right.
So principle number 1, leadership commitment. You want the leader to be not just on board, but to lead the way.
Not outsource it. You can bring in an expert, but you got to be a part of the process. Otherwise, it's just going to actually waste a lot of money and probably cause a lot of conflict, right?
Yeah. And it could create cynicism, and it could create a whole bunch of other stuff that you don't want to create. So
makes sense.
Leadership commitment, and that to fulfill on leadership commitment, you want to get your leaders on board. You want your leaders to understand the importance of developing cultural capital. You want them to be open to changing themselves. Like it's the top leader and then his leaders, they all have to, if you're going to change the culture, you could just focus on top leadership and you will have a lot of leverage. Like you'll make more of an impact than if you focus on 1,000 people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it'll trickle down, right?
They'll set the tone. They'll set the standard. Yeah. They all have to be ambassadors. of the culture. So once you get leadership commitment, you get their buy-in, they're all on board. They all agree that this is important, and you have enthusiasm for it. Obviously, when you start, I always tell people, when you start a process of developing cultural capital, you'll know who to fire. You won't even need to fire them. They'll actually fire themselves because they will
self-identify. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, whoop, I'm in the wrong pond here.
Sorry?
They'll be like, whoops, I'm in the wrong pond. I need to go somewhere else. I need to go
immediately
elsewhere. Yeah.
But that's important, because if not, you don't know who to keep on and who not to keep on. I mean, what's the standard for keeping somebody on and not keeping somebody on? It's usually your culture and your values.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So you start with the leadership team. And the second part is gathering information. It's an information gathering. So, okay, we're going to develop cultural capital. We want to start this whole process. We got our leadership team on board. They're committed. Now let's gather information about who the people that work for us are. Who are they? What do they value? What's important to them? So you want to understand what drives, motivates, and is important to the people that are actually working for you. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're going to align based on values. And I'll give you an example of where we were kind of off in one company that I worked for. One of our values was family. But most of our workers were Generation Z. They were like,
didn't have family yet. Like, there weren't their own leaders of their own family.
They weren't married. They didn't have kids. So and it was clear that the top people with family, I had kids, and they would have benefits for your kids. They would pay part of the school. They would have events. If you would travel, they would bring your kids with you. They would involve family in everything we did. You saw that it wasn't having an impact on most of the employees, because they didn't have family. So they actually felt left out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We're not a part of this. Like, dude, this isn't. Or when we would have surveys and gather information, they would say things like, my dog's my family.
Yeah.
And obviously for sort of like a generation, what are we, Generation X?
Gen, we're Gen X.
Gen
yes,
X?
we are.
Something like that. For a Gen X, for you to tell me my dog's my family is kind of like, hey, the fuck, where are we standing? But then we had.
I wish you guys could see the look on Jose's face right now. If you're not watching on YouTube, that was funny.
Dog's my family. What the?
What do you mean your dog's your family? I mean, dogs are family members. Don't get me wrong, but is your dog gonna drive you to surgery when you've got to have your gallbladder removed? That's what family does.
This is another level of family that they were speaking into. I understand my dog is my family, but it wasn't that level. But anyways. So.
Just for the record, I don't know why I'm laughing so hard. We love dogs on this show.
We do. We love dogs.
And we love dogs. We love dogs. We think dogs are family members. But to say that your pet is your family, like, that's it.
I know people will say they are, but you know what? First thing I say to my friends when they get pregnant, like my my friends that are my age or first time gonna have kids, and they have dogs, and I've seen their relationship with their dogs. I literally walk into the house and I look at the dog and I'm like, you're going to know what it means to be a dog again.
You're done, dude.
You're done, dude. Once the kid's born, you're a dog. You're not a son.
You're going to have to figure out how to feed yourself, because sometimes the humans might forget because they're changing diapers and they've got this little human. No, I'm with you, man.
Anyways,
that's pretty funny.
So you want to understand who your employees are, what drives them, what's important to them. What's important to them? I mean, values is code for what's important to me. Like, what do I value? That's all values are. Values are what we hold important to ourselves. And so once you understand who the people are and what's important to them, then you start establishing organizational values. And these values need to be aligned. There has to be an alignment. So what we would look at is like our overlapping circle. If my personal values overlap with the organizational values, I will commit to that organization. So if what's important to me is tended to and is important in the company, and and there's respect. We usually just call it respect. There's respect between the personal values and the organizational values. And the more overlap and the more respect there is, the more committed the employee is going to be. That's why this is
seen this
critically important.
Yeah, I've seen this play out too, particularly at this company, at DeFactory. I mean, I'm thinking specifically with, we've got a team member here named Trent who's worked here he's coming up on 3 years. And I think he's found that our values align a lot with his, right? It's a culture supportive of people that are, Gen Z, I guess he'd be. Gen Z is that what's that for millennials, Gen Z? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. So, two generations removed, he's like, all right, this place respects my, my work schedule, what's important to me and all these things. And we deeply do, we're understanding of it. And in his commitment to the company, we get back in spades in terms of, like his commitment. Like I can see it, I can feel it. I always tell people, I'm like, we're really lucky because I got team members that care, I think like 90% as much as I do as the owner of the company, which is freaking rare, man. Like
because it is theirs, because they're fulfilling on what's important to them. So the company is a vehicle for them to fulfill on what's important to them. That's all it is. And when there is an alignment, you wake up in the morning and you don't want to go to work. You dread going to work when there isn't any alignment. Like that's a good indicator. How much do you want to go to this company today? And if you're like, I am so sad that I have to go do this,
don't want to go,
then you're misaligned. So you gather information, you understand who the people are that work for you, what's important to them, and then you start structuring ways to fulfill on those values. Like, how can I respond to these values for them? Like, how do we create programs, initiatives, benefits, structure, whatever, around these values? I'll give you another example. I know a person that, it's close to me, worked at a company where the leader didn't value time with his family. Like, didn't want to spend time with his family. It was really like, he just wanted to get away. So he was a workaholic. He would spend hours at work, never wanting to go home, and expected everybody to have the same level of commitment to that work schedule. And if you didn't, it was about you're not committed. Like, you're not sacrificing yourself. Here I am sacrificing, but you're like, I want to go home to my family. So this is a company that doesn't respect family as a value. And when they would do retreats, like, oh, we're going for the weekend, 3 nights to this place. Oh, but without your family. Nobody wanted to go. Unless you're young and single and like you don't want to leave your family for 3 nights and be away from them. But if you go to a company where, hey, we're going on a trip and you can bring your family, we want you to bring your family. It's like, I was in a company like that, and my family loved the company,
right? Because
they were so included in everything that we did. It was amazing. It was amazing times. Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking back, like, I've never worked in a. You hear about people talking about like toxic workplace culture, right? I've actually, as I'm thinking back to my career, I've been blessed in the fact that I've just picked companies or companies have picked me that have had I think aspirational culture. Now in some cases they fell a little bit short, but in other areas they kind of made up for some of the stuff that wasn't like, some of the things that they missed on the wall, right? That were written on the wall. But for the most place, and I don't know about you, but for the most place, I think I'm going to go through my entire career, potentially, having never worked in a place that had what I would consider to be like a toxic culture or a culture that was negative. And I actually, now that you think about like how connected we are, like Glassdoor, for example, the website where employees can go rate employers, right? So now you can go on anonymously and talk about what it's like to work at fill in the blank company. Like, now that people have a voice and that voice can be easily accessed online, like, I don't know if you could have a terrible culture and actually be a going concern in today's world. Like, you could get away with it before we were so interconnected, I think. Like, let's just say the 1990s or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's places that have terrible, toxic cultures, but man, it's hard to keep a lid on it. It's hard to keep that quiet and then attract future people to replace the ones that you're steering away with your toxic culture, you know?
Well, again, culture isn't a problem to be solved. It's a dilemma to be managed. It's not stable. Yeah. You're going to constantly be revisiting this roadmap. You're going to constantly be analyzing, because before we were dealing with millennials. Now we're dealing with Generation Z. Like, millennials are the ones that are complaining about the next generation.
We got four in the workplace right now. We got basically 4 generations that couldn't be more fundamentally different, mostly because of the advances in technology that have happened, during these generations, right? It's such a weird time right now it's very dynamic. It's very dynamic.
So we would gather information. Principle number 1, leadership commitment. Everybody committed. Everybody's on board. Everybody knows why it's important. We're all ambassadors of this. We're gonna be the ones that are gonna embody the change, embody the values. Now let's go find out who everybody is. Let's find out what they value, who they are, what's important to them. Let's gather this information. Let's all understand who's working with us and for us. And now let's establish the values that we want to grow. These are the values that we want to grow. And so it's not just words on a piece of paper. I would usually ask, what are the values? And this is where the vision comes in. I would have them create a vision first. So you can do one or the other, but I would have them work on a vision and then say, okay, what do we need to give importance to? What do we need to value if we want to create this vision? Yeah, and we would do something like a magazine article, magazine cover. Like, what are they saying about us? Who are we? What magazine are we on? What are the statements? What are the headlines? What are the key success indicators that we've achieved? What are employees saying about us? What are clients saying about us? It's like, elaborate on a vision of where we are in 3 to 5 years as a company. And what are they, we're on the front page, on the cover. What is this vision? And then I would bring them back and ask, okay, if that's the vision, what do you need to give importance to create that vision? Now, here's an interesting piece, because what we need to give importance to isn't always what we want to give importance to.
Right.
Let me give you an example. I was working with a branding studio, and they were all millennials at that time, and they were all diverse, and they were all creative, and they were all cool, man. They were like, and their values were creativity, diversity, inclusion, humor, fun. Like, they were like amazing place to be. But they couldn't fulfill on a promise for the life of them.
So, like, accountability
was shit. Like, you would have a meeting with these guys and you didn't know if they were going to show up or at what time they were going to show up. It's like they had a choice to show up or not. And we were so respectful of everybody's that they were falling short on promises that they were making to the clients. They weren't showing up to meetings. They were showing up late. Everything was an excuse. Like, oh no, I didn't, I couldn't make it. Like, and they were frustrated by not getting the results. So when we did that question, like, if this is the vision and this is who you want to be, what do you need to value? One of the values is accountability. Like, what we say, we fulfill on, like making promises and fulfilling and being accountable. And they weren't ready for that. So they plugged it in, because they knew if they wanted to be successful, they needed to give importance to that.
That's crazy. Yeah. Hey, now looking back, do you have any idea where they are now? Were they successful in embracing accountability and getting shit done?
They're still in the game, man. This company was a couple of guys. One of them passed away in a car accident. A very good friend of mine. I coached him one-on-one. And his partner, we're actually going to do a project together soon. But they're still alive. They're still in the game. They navigated COVID. They navigated political uprising. They've been in it for almost a decade, I think. And a lot of it has to do with the understanding, because in the end, again, it's not a problem to be solved. It's something to be managed. The leader understood the concepts and the principles. And I think that's the key. I think that's the key. The critical piece.
Why are you laughing, Jose? Jose, why are you laughing?
Because you're playing around with that rubber ducky.
I'm trying to boost our YouTube views, and there's this rubber ducky with a middle finger that I just threw across the screen while Jose was talking.
I'm trying to be serious here.
I know, and I threw you off, man. I'm sorry.
Throwing a rubber ducky with a middle finger at me. We value humor here. So, anyways,
we do. Yeah.
So anyway,
but no, I think it's. We're talking about these guys. You're talking about the guy who passed away, which is tragic. But the fact that they persevered, and that's really cool that you're able to give them some grounding. Yeah.
And again, the piece here is that whenever I do any type of work like this, I don't even care about the content. I care that the leader, the one in charge, understands the principles of managing culture.
There you go.
That's what I'm going for. I'm going for not the content, the values on the wall. I'm going for the leader really understanding the principles of managing culture. Why? Because that's what's going to build the capacity to manage the cultural capital as they go along through whatever they're navigating. So if they're not in on it and it's not changing them and they're not understanding it and owning the principles, then we're wasting our time and our money.
Yep. It's also, what I learned last week is it's a big hole in the value of their company as well. I mean, if they wanted to exit that business at some point in time, if it's got messed up culture, it's going to get dinged when they figure out what the value is of that asset of the business. And so
unless a good leader takes over, unless they sell it and somebody with vision and jumps in and immediately starts this. It's like, hey, first thing we're going to do here is work on the culture. First thing we're going to do with this company is commit everybody to developing the culture. We're going to establish values and we're going to straighten this thing out and we're going to up the value. Because, it's even better, I think, to buy a company that's valued low and then
absolutely. From a buying side, it's perfect if the culture's jacked up. From a selling perspective, you're shooting yourself in the foot a little bit, right?
You're bringing it low. There's an opportunity, and you know how to develop value.
Yeah.
You know how to develop.
Oh yeah, that's one of your immediate value injectors that you put in there.
Buy a company with a shitty culture, and you transform it, and then you transform it into something, and then you have and I've seen that happen too. Family members.
Think about Zappos. Let's talk about Zappos. Thinking way back to Zappos. Zappos is one of the Web 1.0 companies. Rest in peace, Tony Hsieh, the founder. But Tony had a culture of service. Really, is what Zappos was known for. They were known as a culture of service. If you called and talked to one of their sneaker representatives, they'd talk to you for a freaking hour about shoes if they wanted. That was just their brand. That was their culture. It was cool. They tried to pay people on day one to go away, give them thousands of dollars on their first day to leave. And the dude, who knows what the culture's like now? They got absorbed by Amazon pretty soon, pretty quick and under their journey. But I think that's one of those remarkable companies that people look at when they study culture of, being relentless about caring about the customer. And when you're relentless, if that's your thing, you want to relentlessly care about the customer. You're going to attract people that give a shit. You're going to attract people that pour into people. You're going to attract the type of person like me that could just wing it on the phone with somebody for an hour and talk to them.
Yeah.
You're just going to be like, okay, you're going to find people that care about that. And then what's that going to do? That's going to boost the value of your company. It's going to boost your retention. And it's going to make it's probably going to make your workforce more healthy, because a happy workforce generally is a more healthy workforce. It's just good biz, man.
There was a way
business.
There was a way to measure. They use a measurement. They use a concept called cultural entropy. So cultural entropy is disorder and chaos in a system. Entropy is the loss of energy. So when we talk about cultural entropy, it's all the behaviors and beliefs that don't align with the vision. So it's everything that doesn't really contribute to the vision, to the goal, to what we want to create. And the way they measured it is through values, is through analyzing values. So they would ask what your personal values are, and what the company values are, and what you wish the company's values were. And then you would get a graph of how aligned your company was.
Interesting.
It was pretty fascinating, but you would know, that would give you an indicator. They wouldn't even have a number. You have a cultural entropy of this much. And so the cultural capital, like developing cultural capital, would, like the goal of it was to minimize cultural entropy. And what that meant is that you're minimizing the behaviors that are not aligned to the goals that you want to fulfill on. But we have personal entropy too. I have a lot of personal entropy. Procrastination, wasting time, distractions, using my phone.
Micromanaging your business partner, Kevin.
Micromanaging Kevin. Not listening to Kevin when he wants to micromanage me.
Making fun of my Spanish skills.
My
nunchuck skills. No, but we all have personal entropy.
Yeah, that's how we measure it, is, can we minimize the cultural entropy, which are the behaviors that don't contribute to the goal.
Right.
So then after, you write up the goal, the values, you teach the values. Everything you do after that part of, like articulating the values, and goes the duck again. Shit.
The duck came. The duck.
I need a duck. I need somebody.
The only way we're going to get people to watch the full-length YouTube videos is if we tell them what they're missing, which is the whole point here. Where'd you go, Jose? My co-host just left. He just bailed. You good? Yoda! What's up, Baby Yoda? Baby Yoda just joined the show. You no harm.
He's here to protect.
That's amazing.
Me.
He's here to protect from the mean duck.
Against the duck.
You know what I feel like we've done? I feel like we've gone off the rails, and we should just put a punctuation mark on it.
No, wait a minute. We haven't gone off the rails. Let me wrap it up.
Oh, we haven't? Okay.
No.
All right, let's wrap it up. Land it. Land the plane, dude. Take Yoda.
So once you have the values, you gather your leadership commitment. We can't do this. Put the duck away. Let's try this up without the duck. There you go. So once we're going to do this, Kevin? Okay, everybody listen up. Bear with us. Kevin is acting like a child. So, we commit to developing cultural capital, leadership commitment, then we gather information, understand who people are, we understand their values, we establish the organizational values.
You have to put Yoda away. It's so hard to take you seriously when you've got Yoda.
No, wait, let me finish. And then we teach and grow the values. That's where we put the money. We teach and grow the values. When we hire people, we teach them the values. We fire based on values. We hire based on values. We align to the values. Whenever we need to make a decision, we look at the values and say, what do our values say? Do we merge with this company? Do we not merge with this company? Do we get into this partnership or we don't? Do we get into the service? Are we aligned with our values? And that's what happened in one of the last companies I worked with. We got derailed. The values got derailed. Certain things came up.
Happens.
Because one thing I want to say is, and it happens a lot, is that suddenly you have these charismatic leaders that are really obsessed with this also. This, what we're talking about, that is very important. You also have another extreme, which is people who are creating almost cultish organizations.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that can cause a lot of harm also. That can cause
Absolutely.
a lot of damage also. So you gotta hit the middle path, just like Buddha. You can't not do nothing, and you can't get obsessed and do. You gotta hit the middle and tread that water.
Ride the wave.
You're always creating value. You're always creating culture. Whether you're doing it intentionally and strategically, you're always creating culture. So there you go.
Culture is fascinating because culture is also like this, like you said, it's organic. It's not something. I mean, you can give some guidelines and try, but it's like if you say, hey, here's the type of culture we want, and you try to force it, it's sometimes a little bit more challenging. I've seen that. So it's just one of these more complex topics. I think it's super, super cool. Jose's got a picture of a skull now. Is that on your finger? What do we got here? We'll show and tell. Is that small? Oh, it's on your middle finger.
Oh, hey,
that wasn't designed. Hey, that wasn't designed to make me feel good. That wasn't designed to make me feel good. Our show producer is going to be like, "What is going on with you guys? What is it?" So
it's one of our values. Humor is one of our values, man.
Absolutely. Without it, dude, why do it? Why do it? Well, this is a good talk, man. I mean, it's really been eye-opening to me how much these intangibles really matter. I mean, if you slow down and you think about it, it's a known thing, right? Like, if you think about Google before they became this, like, kind of whatever they are now, but they used to be known for like amazing benefits and giving employees time to work on personal projects and like all these things that you would think would attract the type of person that Google wants to attract, And I would have said at one point in time that they probably had a pretty remarkable culture outside looking in. It was like, oh, that'd be a cool place to work. Like who doesn't want to ride like a 5-color bicycle around a campus and go hang out in a pod and take a nap? Like that sounds like a hell of a lot of fun. But as leadership, you can put up the constraints, you can put up the guardrails, you can lay out the roadmap, but you can't force it. It's got to actually just like organically happen. I think that's what I think's one of the more fascinating aspects of culture.
I'd be so intrigued by what their culture is now because it's such a monster. It's huge. I mean, now you can't talk about Google as one culture, I think, because it has so many different areas and different companies and projects and massive amount of people doing a massive amount of work that it's probably each one has their own culture.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I was going with it. I'm like, now it's like this huge, conglomeration of companies under Alphabet, a holding company. But at one point in time, let's just say maybe just 10 years ago, probably, right? Yeah. Before they became, in my opinion, somewhat evil, quasi-evil, Diet Coke of evil.
Military, they probably have a military division that works with politicians and military and states. And they have a lot of power now. They became something else.
Yep.
Interesting.
So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. 2 asks. You guys know what the asks are. Number 1, hit subscribe. Number 2, if you like what we're doing, leave a review. Number 3, have a phenomenal week and be well.